The first speaker of today is Hasmukh Taylor. He's a former professor at University of Central Florida who's working on quantum holograms and sort of an interface between Eastern philosophy and Western scientific approach. And the title of his talk is What Causes the Split of David Chalmers' Phenomenal and Psychological Consciousness to Form Universe as a Hologram. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming down here. First of all, the title is What Causes the Split of David Chalmers' Phenomenal and Psychological Consciousness to Form Universe as a Hologram. Now, this idea came out after I read his book, The Conscious Mind, which I recommend everybody to read. A real true philosopher and an impeccable logic, I should say. I don't know how he figured it out so deeply, what the foundations for the theory of consciousness should be. And I really admire the intelligence of David Chalmers. I come from the Eastern philosophy side, and I always wondered, how can we get this together? The Western approach and the Eastern approach. And finally I figured it out. And the way I figured it out was, normally the Western philosophy, they make a conceptual model and then try and experience that. From the Eastern side, what we do is we experience it first. We experience what consciousness really is. And then we conceptualize so that we can make people understand this is how it is. I'll be speaking from direct experience, and hopefully you'll get insight into what I'm saying. We'll be able to answer what consciousness really is. What is the difference between consciousness and observer? Because that is the hard problem. If you know the difference between consciousness and observer, everything will drop out very easily. Now, according to David Chalmers, he says in his book, consciousness is the biggest mystery. It may be the largest outstanding obstacle in our quest for scientific understanding of the universe. Now, what I intend to show here in about 20-25 minutes, what causes the split in consciousness, a split which will explain the difference between consciousness and observer, subjectivity and objectivity, how it helps to understand whether the universe is a hologram, and what came first, consciousness or absolute reality. Let's go to the father of quantum mechanics, and let's see what he has to say. He says, science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature, and that is because in the last analysis, we ourselves are part of the mystery we are trying to solve. Now, this is the king talking here, right at the beginning. What I can't figure out is why do people try and analyze so much, yet they don't even realize they're part of it. And I would say, yes, partly, Deepak is right when he says it takes consciousness to realize consciousness. And it's a bit tricky for a brain to analyze the brain. So, having said that, I would like to quote this about Dr. Edgar Mitchell. He wrote in this book, The Way of Explorer, and he put it this way: to reveal the nature of mind while simultaneously probing the mind of nature requires a single, interconnected, interactive approach, quite different from that Descartes, Newton, and Einstein. Compelled by scientific findings, human beings would finally come to realize that in this interconnected and interdependent universe, what one does to others, one does to oneself. Science would then find itself validating the ancient teachings of the great mystics, gurus, and the saints. The quantum holographic model may be missing link between quantum mechanics and general relativity. This is the missing link. It's no good uniting it together. There is a missing piece there in the middle, and that is what this lecture is about. It is the holistic thread that weaves the two schools of thought together, providing an unprecedented integration of cosmic scale and atomic scale phenomena. So, to start with, what David Chalmers did was a stroke of genius. Nobody's done this before. He figured out what is the difference between consciousness and awareness. We use this in everyday speech in a kind of a conflated nature, you know. We interchange these two words like as if they mean the same thing. But if we really want to understand, it is very crucial to know the difference between them. right at the outset, because if you don't know the difference between that, then everything will just won't make any sense whatsoever. Just as a joke, if you want to know what the difference is, it's very simple. You must have got drunk before in life, which is nice now and then. But have you noticed that your awareness is impaired? But you know also that you are drunk. There's two components to that. Somebody or something inside you knows you are drunk. In other words, your awareness is not in order. So there, the knower is the consciousness, and the one who's unstable is the whole awareness system within your human body. So having understood that, let's see what the founding principles are. David Chalmers says coherence between conscious experience and cognitive structure. There should be a coherence between those two, experience and cognition. Second, he says where there is consciousness, there must be awareness. The third one is a bit complicated. He's saying the principle of structural coherence. In other words, the structure of consciousness is mirrored by the structure of awareness, and the structure of awareness is mirrored by the structure of consciousness. Therein lies, I think, the stroke of genius on the part of David Chalmers. And the last one is principle of organizational invariance, which comes under the title of hologram. So I will be covering that quickly. But before that, that organizational invariance, which boils down to basically holographic principle, we've got to understand very quickly what this hologram or holograph is. We have a laser pen, and the light that comes out of it is coherent. It's a physical light. The principle under which hologram works, and my professor, Denis Gabor, I was at Imperial College, London, and he got a Nobel Prize for it. He was the first person to figure out the hologram. And this is how he explained to me. You need to have a coherent beam, a half-silvered mirror. When a coherent beam hits the half-silvered mirror, it splits into two. A reference beam and object beam. The object beam is then made to fall on a real object, like a chess piece. The light bounces off there and goes and meets the reference beam. Interference pattern happens. Interference pattern is recorded on the film, and you have a hologram. Now, to see the hologram, you shine a light source, as you see there, onto the hologram, and the observer here sees a virtual image, which is due to reflection, and a real image due to diffraction. This, in a nutshell, is how hologram works. Now, where does the Eastern philosophy come in? This is all science. Believe it or not, in our own human body, we have what is called a consciousness hologram inside us. In yoga, it is known by a famous term called Kundalini. It is situated inside the human body, and that's very important to understand what that is. We all have it, and it's fully responsible for the maintenance of our human body. Nobody seems to understand that this Kundalini, or this consciousness hologram, is real and is present inside us. It is because of that we are living. It is because of that we are breathing and able to do all the functions in the human body. Another quality about the hologram is that you can cut into so many parts, and each part is still the same. You can add, subtract, do whatever you want to do, but it still remains whole. Now let's see how the consciousness hologram works. I'll go step by step so you understand it. From the source, very simply like sun, up there in the sky, two energies come out, heat and light. Like so, from the absolute source, the divine source, you have pure awareness and pure consciousness coming out as a coherent beam, just like a laser. it hits this half-silvered mirror, also known as Brahman, or awakened Kundalini, and that's where the split happens. Phenomenal consciousness of David Chalmers and the psychological consciousness, also known as free will, knower, Atman, light, or observer, and determined will, knowledge, self, cosmic law, or observed. Once it passes through this beam here is in phase with the pure consciousness of the source. This is the observer here, which is inside you. Now, consciousness is before it hits that Brahman, or awakened Kundalini, or, if you like, the true self. Once these two, psychological consciousness and phenomenal consciousness, hit together, you have a quantum hologram, or slipping Kundalini, which is made up of self and these 8 elements. Now, this is our chess piece here. This is the original Shiva, Sanskrit term meaning the original self, which is inside you. All these are basically our way of understanding the nervous system, which are chakras. These are all the chakras, and that's the real self. This is the real you here. This is called self-realization. You are nothing but a template of awareness. You can see these parts. These are the awareness template, the chakras, 9 of them. And the light falls onto that awareness template, or the quantum hologram, and you get projected out as real and virtual images. The real image is what you are sitting here right now. You'll be here for 50, 60 years, and then you go in the coffin. Nothing is real here except your true self. The virtual image is inside your nervous system. And that's how it is. Let me explain you the mirror of awareness first. Self, when you actually see it in meditation, is a live, transparent thing, like glass. And all these are the harmonics or the chakras behind the awareness, and that makes the awareness mirror. So really, you are a mirror. The grossest coating is outside you. Inside you becomes finer, 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 till you reach the innermost layer, which is the self. Your self is truly buried inside you deeply. This is just the 8 elements that are being projected from the quantum hologram as a real image. Now your job is to go from real image back to the source. And the only way you can do that is, first of all, realize you are a mirror. And if you can get out of this mirror, like Neo did in the film Matrix,
I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
then you will be free man or have moksha or full liberation. And then once you get out of the mirror, you can enter the mirror anytime you like. You'll be part of the system here, be with the program, but nothing to do with the program. And that is what the idea of perception is. Perceive it properly as it is. And yoga will help you do that. And lastly, constraints, vagueness David Chalmers had in the book. Just what kind of organization gives rise to conscious experience? What kind of organization? Has to be holographic. How simple can an organization be before experience vanishes? Well, the organization has to be from implicit order to explicit order, which is this. And from explicit, you go back into implicit order. How can we predict the specific character of experience? Not just a structure from the physical basis, from here. How can we predict? Well, we agree there is a self inside you. I'm sure you feel yourself sometimes, and sometimes you don't feel yourself. That just gives you, it's a gut feeling. And from here, you can predict. Because self in everyone is same, only the outer covering is different. The 8 elements are different. And this I already said in the beginning, the Western philosophical approach, we conceptualize first and then the experience. Well, Eastern approach is we experience it first and then we conceptualize. Hard problem lies in understanding or realizing the difference between consciousness and observer. What is inside you is an observer, not consciousness. And till you come out of this mirror, you will never know what consciousness is. It's one thing to talk about consciousness, but you're speculating it. See it for yourself, realize it for yourself. Once you know what consciousness is, then you can explain everybody else. And you'll find consciousness is a live light coming from the source. It is not an ordinary light. There's no photons there. It's a real light, live light. And it is that light that you need to experience the other states of consciousness like sleep, wandering, dream, and awake, and being yourself, or Turiya, as Deepak says. So I will end here, and if any questions, I'll entertain that, please. Thank you.
You know, in the Rig Veda, Book 10, verse 129, it clearly says that nobody knows the source. And we just are, nobody knows this.
Yeah.
So if you'd just kindly make
Sure.
a comment on that.
We can fit in the Vedanta philosophy in this because of the time constraint. I didn't bring it in. But briefly, as you know, there are 4 Vedas. You mentioned Rig Veda, there's Sam Veda, Atharva Veda, and all those 4 of them. The materialistic side of things is just a projection from the hologram, which is this human body. In the scriptures, they only mention about 4 Vedas. There is a 5th one. There's a 5th Veda which nobody knows except the true gurus or the saints. They know about the 5th Veda, and that is about the source. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, if there are any other questions?
Yes.
I enjoyed the talk, and there's a lot that I agree with, or I didn't understand everything, but I think that it's important also to notice that the brain itself can be seen as an apparatus that does face-front reconstruction. That is, the way in which the neurons store the information can be, there's something called the canonical transformation by Zikevich and Hoppenstadt. The point is that you can take the Huxley-Hodgkin equation and perform a very simple transformation that now the variable in the Hamiltonian becomes phase differences, and it works just as well. So it's the memory, when you interact with something, is really stored as a hologram in phase differences, and when you have presence or recollection, it is actually reconstructed just as you have face-front reconstruction. And that is a bit similar to the Gabor transform, at least metaphorically.
Correct, but you need to have the light falling on that awareness template, you understand? And that light is the reference beam, which is the observer's light. And nobody has seen that light. Only if the observer's light falls on it, as 0 as we call it on there, which is a self-referential light, till then nothing will make sense.
No.
But what you are saying is correct. It's correct from the perspective of the Western philosophy, because they'll go to any lengths, as we have seen, microtubules, this, that, firing this, and all that, E over tau and all that. That's all fine. But that's in the viewing hologram. You're examining this brain here, this gray matter and the cortex and the ganglia and everything. But what Eastern philosophy is saying is that is just a projection of the chakras which are on the other side. in the recording side, which is the real stuff. So both are right in a way, but Western philosophy is looking into the mirror, into the image, the reflection, and then analyzing the reflection, while on the Eastern side, they're looking at the real thing and then analyzing it within themselves. Yes?
So I have a brief question. I'm a neuroscientist in my day job, so you already discussed, so this is not meant to pester.
No problem.
But from my understanding of sort of the Vedic philosophy, it's and a primary difference between Eastern and Western approaches. The Eastern approach is a lot of times about negation, right? About what consciousness is not, trying to define that rather than defining an object. And I wonder whether you have something to say about that.
Sure.
So it's like the question was, like, what's the sound? Is it the drummer? Is it the drum? Right? It's not. It's neither. So if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, neti. Well, the four Vedas, as we call Vedanta philosophy, there are four of them. And all four of them declare neti. Not this, not this, not this, not this. Now, there's a fifth Veda, which knows the differences, or as we say in Sanskrit, bhed, between four of them. Mutually, there is a difference. And the difference is recorded in the fifth Veda, which is the Veda of the source. Thank you.